1 minute until showtime.
Okay.
Well, that was that. Hold on a second here. That was only a 99. A 99. Look at all these people here. We could do a 102.
99 bottles of beer on the wall. Hey!
Well, that's
Check,
101, and that's close enough.
That's good.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now, from the world's most famous beach, from where beach racing began, it's the Legends of Racing radio show, live from racing's North Turn Beach Bar and Grill in Ponce Inlet, Florida. The Legends of Racing radio show with your host, Buzz McKim, and co-host, Gary Keller.
Hey, all righty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Got a heck of a crowd here today. I'll tell you what.
I didn't expect this with this weather, man.
Yeah.
Some diehards. You guys are diehards, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate you. I mean, it's just amazing. Week in, week out. You guys just support us, and gosh darn, it's just great.
Yeah, it's great. It's like a family.
Of course, we have such great guests, and
Yeah,
this
that's
is
right.
what this guy here, man. Whenever you told me, Buzz, that this guy was coming, that was such a great show that we had last time.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
You know, and you were so informative about your past and with your dialogue and your interest in racing. I mean,
Thanks, Gary. Really appreciate that. It's nice to be back. It's not the temperatures that we normally expect this time of year, but certainly the sun's starting to come out, and I think things in the temperature range are starting to come up.
Yeah.
So the weather's improving from what was rainy and cloudy and really cold 3 or 4 days ago when everybody rolled into town
Right.
to now, maybe typical January weather, and we're looking at what Rolex 24 race start time, weather about 55 and sunny, so
not bad.
that's not too bad.
Yeah. Real race fans will not be deterred.
Certainly not me.
No.
so if you're
would
thinking
say
about
so.
going to the Rolex tonight, forget it. No, I'm kidding. No, go support those guys. It's amazing to watch the race at nighttime.
Yep.
Really
that's
is
amazing.
a different perspective of racing.
Yeah, the cars look like they're doing 8,000 miles an hour at night.
Well,
It's
it's something you have a lot of nighttime a lot of darkness at this time of year racing at Daytona, which is its own unique challenge for the drivers. And then you add on top of that the extremely cool temperatures that as we get into the past midnight hours that we're going to see on the track, and kind of a magic temperature to jump right into things, and we can kind of start at the top later and work our way into the details. But one of the things in this weekend's race on Saturday night that all 61 teams are going to have to deal with there is the tire situation, because at about 55 degrees, which is going to be our daytime high, the track temperature is about 20 degrees higher. But at about 55 degrees is where the tires really become a choice between a medium tire that is a much softer tire and the regular race tire, which is a more durable tire and designed for higher track temperatures. And it's right where the nighttime temperatures will start to drop. So from the midnight, 11 or 12, when it starts to really get cool, from then until the sun comes back up, which is a long time, about 8 hours, the cars, whether they're in GT cars, which are the production-based cars that look like something maybe is in our garage, if you're lucky, a Ferrari or a Porsche or a Lamborghini, versus the pure racing cars, the GTP cars that this year are represented by, 8 or 9 manufacturers. The choices they have to make in the nighttime on tires is going to determine that really critical time before the sun comes back up. And it's going to be a really interesting evening race. You're going to have your gloves and hat, but it's going to be really an interesting thing to watch.
It's amazing how much that supple rubber really changes. The temperature changes. So, of course, in racing, it's just advantage, disadvantage. You got to take your pick.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're a crew chief, you got to decide, pick your draw. How much inflation you're going to do, air pressure. You know, it's the luck of the draw.
Well, we ought to introduce this guy
Yeah,
right here.
we
Yeah, we jumped right in.
We-
didn't
we
we?
That's
did.
right. And
We
you,
just figured everybody knew him.
and you've been anonymous up to this point. But this is Mr. Preston Root, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Preston was pit reporter for Motor Racing Network in the Xfinity Series for how many years?
I was with MRN for 14 years.
Were you really?
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. MRN, I started out in the truck series in about 2001 and retired at the Rolex 24. My last 7 years there, I did the IMSA series. That was in the booth for the IMSA series. So
I'll be darned.
these cars are my first love. This is my 52nd consecutive Rolex 24.
Wow. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
That's incredible.
You know, your
Yeah,
story.
That's amazing.
Your story has been great. You've been so diversified in everything that you've done. I mean, your past history with Coke, your family. You know, I mean, what a great storyline. Everything in general.
You're very kind, Gary. Thanks. I'm really proud of it, and especially the racing part of it. You know, a lot about is luck in racing, and certainly in my career, I was lucky enough to work with a great team and a great company, MRN Radio. The voice of NASCAR still brings every NASCAR race to fans live, wherever you are. And to be with them was a great privilege, but to bring all that knowledge and passion to that audience was really fun. We had a good group of people together, and to be with my colleague back down here, Guy Hobbs, that we worked together for 20 years for the
Hey.
Rolex 24.
Yeah, raise your hand
Um,
there, you guy.
It's really
great
great to
announcer. Great announcer.
he brought a perspective of history and knowledge and passion that we all shared. And back then, that was when the Rolex 24, we did the whole broadcast ourselves. MRN did some, but it's always been my passion in racing. Really spans everything. Indianapolis, of course, NASCAR I love. But my real passion is always endurance racing. I love the long races, the World Endurance Championship, Le Mans, and especially the Rolex 24. I mean, that first one I was at was 1972, and
Wow.
Mario Andretti won in a
the
Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite a race.
And you started in the Craftsman Truck Series when it first started, basically.
A
Right?
little bit after,
Little
but
bit
yeah,
after,
well, it
so-
was here and Ron Hornaday and Dennis Setzer, and those are names now that are historic names,
right.
you know, and they're the names that I remember growing up with.
Quaffle?
And
Yeah.
and that was the trucks always were. I think one of the highlights of Speed Weeks.
Oh, boy.
You know,
Yes.
it really and still is one of the. I think it has a lot to do with the aerodynamics and the type of car, but I still think the Truck Series is a great part of Speed Weeks, and boy, that's just around the corner.
Yeah, I know. Boy, yeah, you can see it from here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you for the first time. I think it was at Bristol in 2002. Travis Quapple, I think, won that race that night.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
good. It's a name.
That was my
could
first-
hardly remember
Yeah.
back that far.
That was my first truck race, you know, and you know, it was a great time.
Yeah, it was
Tim Souter was my
Tim
guy.
Souter. Yeah, the historic family, and you know, a lot of names that are now leaving the upper echelons of NASCAR. All of them got their start in the trucks. I remember Kurt Busch. I'm sorry, Kyle Busch, when he first came to, it was Texas Motor Speedway. He was 17, and it was at the time. It was before they had their 18-year-old rule in place, and we were all sitting around, and it was an IndyCar race weekend, but we were there to cover the trucks for MRN Radio, and we started seeing Kyle and just a kid at the time.
Skin and bones.
Yeah, he was. And we said, you got to see this guy. Everybody is lifting in turn one, and he's going through there flat out. And our whole group of MRN people went up. There used to be a tunnel at turn one, and never seen anything like it. And of course now, you know, I mean, a multiple champion, somebody that's probably considering retirement, like his brother has done.
Yeah,
and,
probably.
You know, time goes by. It doesn't slow down for anybody.
Yeah, and now his son is doing very well. Yeah, his little boy. he's winning races.
Yeah.
Would be in quarter midgets.
Yeah, and I think he's getting ready to get into Legends cars.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So there'll be another Busch coming along here pretty soon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what Kurt always used to say is, you think I'm good. Wait till you see my little brother. And he was right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. So do you miss the announcing?
I do. Guy Hobbs and I get to reminiscing, and we talk about old friends and family that was in racing and all the fun that we had. And I miss it a great deal for the first 5 laps of every race.
Yeah. It got to me too. I just couldn't.
Thursdays coming home on Sunday or Mondays, depending on how lucky you were. And that did, and my family's was growing up at the time. And, it was it was 32 years for me from when I started with Guy to when I left. And I did it at the same place at Daytona. My first broadcast was '84. A.J. Foyt won the Rolex 24.
Oh, yes.
And my last race was 30 years later with MRN there in 2014.
Yeah, and speaking of A.J. Foyt, he just had his 90th birthday.
90th birthday.
Last
Saw that on the internet.
I would have never thought AJ would have ever lived that long.
Yeah,
I would have never thought, with all the accidents he's had,
So he's definitely got 9 lives.
Yes, he does.
He's
He's
amazing.
improved that in the new book that's out.
Oh, yeah.
It's just fantastic. But it's been out for just 3 months now. When we're on break, I'll look up at the author. You guys will all want to see it. It's so well researched and such a book about AJ's life that it's in 2 volumes.
Really?
Yeah, they're working on the second volume now. The first volume's loaded with good stories, but also the history, who AJ was, who his parents were, the great pictures, and it's these books coming out now. are great.
I was in Indianapolis. Ari Lyondike on the show.
Fastest man ever at Indy.
Yeah, whenever AJ attacked him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was it. That was
It was Texas.
Was it Texas?
I think
yeah.
it was Texas.
Was it Texas? Yeah, I'm sorry, it wasn't Indy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, he was funny. Inducting AJ into the Hall of Fame up in Mooresville, North Carolina, a number of years ago, and of course he idolized AJ, and so he gave this big flowery speech. And AJ, first thing he says, "How old are you, boy?" And he told him, he said, "Well, hell," he says, "if you ain't crippled by now, you're not running fast enough."
Foyt's limped as long as I've known him, which is a long time, and I think that one of the class acts, Tony Stewart in racing, I think one of the neatest things he ever did was when he decided to run 14 on the side of his car. He called and asked AJ. He said, "Hey, I want to run 14 on my car as a tribute to you." And he actually, called up AJ and kind of asked permission. And
I'll be darned.
AJ told that story with a little sparkle in his eye for somebody that had some respect for what AJ has done.
Yeah.
And, that's how far back it goes, and has to do with where we'll go in a little bit, but in the show. But the Foyt's history, my family was affiliated and knew AJ forever. My parents did anyway. AJ's rookie year at Indy was 58. That was the year Pat O'Connor, which was my dad's driver, had the pole position at Indy. And Pat was AJ Foyt's rookie trainer.
Yeah.
His first year at Indy.
Well, tell us a little bit about your family and where it came from, basically, with the Coke and so forth, just to give the audience a
Right. So for everybody that's listening and everybody that's here, if you don't know, my family's been involved in racing in one form or another. This is really the first decade that we haven't been involved in racing, but it goes back 6 decades. When my father started racing in the 50s, he owned a team at NASCAR. I'm sorry, at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He had an IndyCar team. They started in 56, and they ran Curtis Kraft built Offenhauser powered cars and ran Indy. And then in 58 had the pole position at Indianapolis, and then also ran some of those Indy cars at Daytona, and that was in January of 58, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, with the Indy cars at Daytona?
Yeah.
59.
59.
Yeah.
And so that was my father's beginning in racing, and then we continued that. My brother ran a program with Bobby Allison. That was when
Really?
Coca-Cola was on the side of Bobby Allison's
Sure.
car. And so that went through the 70s and then through the 80s and 90s. My brother did historic sports car racing, and then in 2000, we fielded a car for Andy Hillenberg.
Really?
Indiana, Andy Hillenberg. And he started the 2001 Indy 500, finished 27th. Not great, but at least we started. And then continued to race. My brother did, and so it's a long 55 to 2015 is a long time and a lot of racing.
That's for sure.
And that's the kind of the family's racing history. Our business history is in Coca-Cola. My great-grandfather designed and patented, and then subsequently Root Glass Company manufactured the original Coca-Cola bottle. So that is a proud heritage, along with the racing and all the great friends that we've made in all those years. They span both business and in particular this community. Our business and our family has been in Daytona Beach for 75 years this year.
Really?
Yeah, my parents moved here in 1950.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea they were here that long.
Yep.
I'll be
Speaking
darned.
of Root Glass Company, you guys manufactured a bottle, but when I was in high school, I worked at a tool and die shop in Xenia, Ohio. And we had a Coke machine in there. We'd put our quarter in, and we'd pull out the little 6-ounce.
You're putting a dime in then.
Dime in, yeah, dime.
Yeah.
You must be awful old.
Oh, yeah, I'm up there, right there with you, But anyway, we'd pull the 6-ounce bottle out, and we look at the bottom to see where it was distributed at.
Yeah.
And whoever had the longest away from Xenia, Ohio, whether it be Topeka, Kansas, or Oakland, California, or wherever, would win the pot.
I'll be darned.
Why did they why would they put the logo of the actual city
So
at the bottom
originally,
of that bottle?
yeah, it's a great question, and I get it a lot. Originally, it was so the person that purchased the bottles in Xenia, Ohio, they would purchase those bottles from Root Glass Company, and they wanted those bottles returned to who bought them. They wanted them returned to Xenia, and it was a cooperative thing, and it was regional. They would sort bottles and return the Xenia bottles there, and Cleveland to there. It got to be Coca-Cola, of course, grew so quickly that it got to be that it didn't matter where the bottles came from. They just cleaned them, sanitized them, filled them, and used them wherever they came from. Well, in the mid-50s, I might have to check my dates on that, but around the 50s, they took the names off the bottom of the bottles, and everybody had a fit. People really loved seeing that name on the bottom of the bottle, and they put it back on, and when they put
This was the 60s, late 60s.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Preston Root, everybody.
The best is yet to come, trust me.
Yes.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. Racing's original North Turn is our broadcast headquarters. If you're looking for a good drink, great entertainment, and the best in food, they're right on the beach at Racing's original North Turn. Come on down to dinner tonight. Here are a couple of testimonials. These are actual testimonials from people who have enjoyed the North Turn. Been there many times, always great food and drinks, great location on the beach. And another, what a great experience. It's my new favorite restaurant in the Daytona Beach area, Racing's original North Turn on South Atlantic Avenue. That's A1A in Ponce Inlet, about 3.2 miles south of the Dunlawton Bridge and A1A intersection. It's Racing's original North Turn, a restaurant, museum, bar, gift shop, live music. That's Racing's North Turn. Thanks to you, the original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill has been voted top 10 beach bar in Florida year after year after year. We're back from where it all began. Racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buzz McKim, and co-host, Gary Keller.
All righty. Thank you so much, everybody. We're here with Preston Root, and this segment is being brought to you locally by Staples on International Speedway Boulevard. Anything for the office, so they can take care of it for you. It's also being brought to you locally by Daytona Flea and Farmers Market, voted one of the top 5 markets in the country by USA Weekend.
Best one I've ever been to.
Yep. Awesome, isn't it? You can get everything but human body parts there.
Yep.
and visit our Shop Now network and our Shop Now at Daytona Flea and Farmers Market Facebook page for the latest in vendor tours. We've got Big Mike here. Mike, do you have a question for Preston?
Yes, thank you,
I
Buzz.
hope I can answer it.
Mr. Rook, thank you for coming and visiting us today.
I'm happy to be here.
And your history with your family and racing. Coming from the Midwest, MRN was our go-to to listen to radio and the races, so I thank you so much for your gift to racing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I worked with a great team of people.
A question I'm going to ask a little bit off track, but on the endurance racing, what do you think about NASCAR throwing in as a race between the first race and the 24-hour a NASCAR endurance racing, since we have crossover drivers in most of the racing sports? How do you think that would go over with all the new things that NASCAR are trying?
Well, I think it's a great question, because I think that you see in these new races in particular, I use examples like the Roval at Charlotte and Chicago the last couple of years. That the rain race at Chicago, while not the funnest race for the race fans, was tremendous entertainment. And you have drivers now that don't have to come in and be specialized drivers for road courses. All of these guys in NASCAR, or especially in the NASCAR Cup side, that are as talented a road racer as you need to be to excel even in the Rolex 24. And we've seen that in years past, and we see it this year. Not as much in the last few years as previously. I always remember Tony Stewart's heartbreak at the Rolex 24 in the Citgo car. But I think that there's so much pressure time-wise between the Busch Clash and the Daytona 500. If you're talking about a specific point on the calendar, I think you could find another place for it. But I think an endurance race that possibly, I suspect when you say endurance race, you'd have at least two drivers in the car. I think it would be a neat idea. And there hasn't been anything in the last 10 years that NASCAR hasn't been willing to try to improve the show for us, the fans. And Chicago is my favorite example of that. I love the way that simple layout is set up. I love that especially the Australian V8 supercar guys have come into the sport. Marcus Ambrose was one from my time. And these guys are used to that size car on that confined type track. And, Van Ginzenberg, the guy was incredible.
Tearing it up.
Yeah. He ended up winning that race, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure did.
But I think there's interest. I think in the sake of time and for the teams and the drivers and the schedule, I think it's unlikely. It would be really interesting. I think that NASCAR, maybe not as much as the team owners, but NASCAR encourages that crossover into the Rolex 24. We have 30 countries represented, 61 cars in this year's Rolex 24.
That's amazing.
Champions from every aspect of the sport: IndyCar, Rolex, of course, IMSA, NASCAR. It goes all the way across the board. So it's kind of what you're asking for. It's just under the IMSA banner. But that, and of course, shortly after we have Sebring, which is one of my favorite racetracks besides Daytona. So those are good. But I like the idea. Teammates in NASCAR racing,
It would be great, but unfortunately,
make it a 3-hour race.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Sure.
Yeah, 3-hour limit. Yeah, but you got preparations and so forth. So you add that preparation onto the Daytona 500, getting ready to preview of that. Then you got the West Coast turn, Las Vegas, California.
The time demands are just incredible on NASCAR now. I mean,
The schedule is just unbearable. It's not good.
No, that's for sure.
After Daytona, it's just grueling when you do that West Coast swing.
Yep, you really rack up some miles, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Well, the one reason that we had Preston come by today is he's got this burning desire to get the name Tazio Nuvolari out there in front of the public. And this is a fellow who raced back in the 30s and into the 40s and was spectacular. No less than Ferdinand Porsche said he was the best driver ever. And I think Ferrari probably felt about the same way, didn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ferdinand Porsche, the founder of the original car make, said that he was the best race car driver that he ever seen. And that's what got my attention, and that's what got me doing research. And my research is in the beginning. It's spurred an interest in me in these race car drivers that go back. Now we're talking 100 years plus. And Tazio Nuvolari, if you talk to my dad or you talk to your grandfather, they're going to say that that's who they talked about as the best race car driver of that time. And I'm talking that we're more than 100 years ago. So his first race was in 1921. He raced all the way until the mid-50s. So let me just put this in perspective. So started on motorcycles at 14. By 17 was driving professional cars, and by 18 was in some of the top car makes of the time. At the time, Alfa Romeo and Bugatti were the two cars. Alfa Romeo eventually spinning off, and Enzo Ferrari buying a portion of that and starting the Ferrari car company. So we're talking about a time that is so long past that it's this desire that many of us share is people that love history, is that it just doesn't get talked about too much anymore. So think about this idea for a second and see what you think about having a forum where you can discuss the oldest question in racing history, which is who is the greatest driver in the world. And it just, everybody, when you bring that up, first thing through most people's mind is we can't go there. Well, this shows it's going to go too long. It's going to be too passionate. There's no way to make a solid argument on how that is, because it doesn't matter who you name. You can name something about them that makes them either the best driver in the world or makes them more than likely not the best driver in the world. Foyt is a perfect example. We just talked about his book. A.J. Foyt, he's won the Triple Crown, but he's never won a Formula One race. So can he be the best race car driver in the world? In my opinion, many of you know this, I think he's the greatest race car driver that ever lived, but I'm biased. But in a forum where you have, say, three of us up here that each bring something to the table and have done our research, which I'm starting to do on Nuvolari and others, that says this is why. And so some of the things that come up when you look at Nuvolari is, for example, in some of the Bugattis and some of the Alfa Romeos that he drove in, they called them Grand Prix, but they were 10 hours long. So they're the most high-performance cars that are made at the time. So in today's world, that would be Formula One. That would be a McLaren. That would be a Mercedes-Benz. That would be a Ferrari. They're the most high-performance cars of the time. They do over 125 miles an hour. This is in the 20s. The races are 10 hours long, many times through street circuits. Targa Florio, Mille Miglia is another one, both in Italy. These are on brick-lined, ditch-lined roads, and some of these races went all the way into the 1970s. In particular, the Targa Florio, its last year was 1972. So you have this neat connection between the earliest days of competitive road racing, 10-hour Grand Prix, into modern times. 1972 was the last Targa Florio. Brian Redman won that race in a Porsche. And the contrast in the amount of drivers that did it, it's how do you decide who is best? And so a lot of times there's been great debates on this. You can include current NASCAR drivers, you can include IndyCar drivers, sports car drivers, but I've taken an interest for whatever reason. I don't know. I guess retired. I have a lot of time on my hands. In the oldest of these guys that people have forgot about, Hans Stuck was a name that at Daytona in the Rolex 24 was the Rainmeister. I'm talking about people that were his father and grandfather. Tazio Nuvolari, born in 1914. The earliest of these drivers, and frequently driving with broken arms and broken legs, frequently being left on the side of the road because there was no one to find them after a crash. I mean, it's the I don't know, the allure of racing to these guys was put ahead of really everything else. They just lived to race, and I guess you could say that now, but
Very little safety in that air.
virtually none.
None.
Their idea was the best thing, no seatbelts, no helmet, because if the car wrecked, the first thing you wanted to do was clear the car. It was pretty terrifying stuff. And we can come back and we can have times where the audience, or however we do it, where we can pick drivers and we can highlight drivers, and it's the records themselves get a little bit dry, but the stories never dry up. There's always some fascinating fact about these guys that just is, you can't believe that somebody won Le Mans after having their leg removed the year before. All true. Yeah.
Amazing. We're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back with Preston Root on more really cool stories.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. At Beach Boys Embroidery and Tees, it's all about making you happy. Beach Boys Embroidery can customize your athletic golf apparel, caps, hats, badges, buttons, magnets, backpacks, bags, totes, clocks, watches, and of course, T-shirts. Sure, they're at 2033 South Ridgewood Avenue in South Daytona, and they're waiting for you to call now. 386-255-5880. Beach Boys Embroidery and Tees. Let Aloha Marine get you on the water with huge discounts on great brands like Bayliner, Carolina Skiff, Hurricane, Key West, and Regal. Pay as little as $169 a month with 10% down and approved credit. Don't wait. Get to Aloha Marine, 1700 North Nova Road, Holly Hill, Monday through Saturday. 47 years and always better than boat show prices. We're back from where it all began. Racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buzz McKim, and co-host, Gary Keller.
All righty. Thank you, everybody. We're here with Preston Root. We're having a grand old time, and he got some more information on that A.J. Foyt book. It's called A.J. Foyt, Survivor, Champion, and Legend by Art Garner. And Survivor is number one on the list, and he definitely is a survivor.
The stories are unbelievable.
He got attacked by those killer bees at one time.
Flipped his these are the ones off the track. Flipped his bulldozer twice into a lake and almost drowned.
Yeah.
I think back to some of the racing accidents that I saw, and I don't even want to relive them. AJ just is one of those guys that not only has been a constant throughout the sport in everything, winning Le Mans, Rolex 24, Indy 500, Daytona 500, all the big ones, championships. A lot of people don't know, except for huge fans, the short track and dirt track record that he put together was the 60s was the envy of every racer out there. But this book by Art Gardner is it's a masterpiece, and to think that there's a second half coming out, I can't wait. I fall asleep to it every night. Book on tape. Love it.
The accident that I remember is Wisconsin.
Oh, boy.
Where it almost killed him.
Yeah, it was rough.
Oh, he had a half a dozen like that. Yeah. Sanair, Canada, was stuck under the guardrail for 45 minutes. I mean, yeah.
What he's endured.
Hit the wall at Michigan and messed his arm up real bad.
He is still as gracious as ever. I saw him a month ago, and was at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and he was in good spirits, and we hope that he's able to make it for April when the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame, their new museum, opens. That's an $80 million capital restoration for the Speedway at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and hope he's going to be there then to see that.
Thank you, Roger Penske.
Yeah, well, it's independent of Penske, but he certainly has been supportive of making that happen. But yeah, the museum up there is its own entity, and of course Roger supports it a great deal. It's on his property. I suppose it'd be his landlord.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be neat. And hope to see AJ there. That's why I'm going to be there on first week in April.
All right, that'd be great. Oh, and by the way, the foreword for that Foyt book is by Mario Andretti. So it
Wow.
shows that there's no problem between those guys. You know, that's
they've left that behind.
Yeah.
I went to a dinner and they were both there. This had been a year and a half ago, and the intense rivalry that they had at one point is something of the past. So it's everybody. I think when you're 90, you're friends with everybody.
I think you're right. Speaking
But-
of friends, we got a friend here with Tony. Tony, what you got?
Hey, Tony.
Hey, it's Tony time.
Tony time, ladies and gentlemen.
First, I had a quick story. I was out at the Roar last Saturday, walking around in the garage, and I think it was the Pratt and Miller Corvette team. 2 Corvettes in the garage, up on the jacks, people scurrying everywhere. And in the back of the garage were 2 guys on their hands and knees with flashlights, looking under the toolbox, looking under the car, having people move out of the way. And I was just impressed that highly skilled people drop stuff and can't find it.
Very astute.
My question relates to your announcer days. With the new broadcast partners, there's talk that some of the truck and Xfinity races will be called from Charlotte, not at the track.
Yeah.
That's causing a stink.
Well, you know,
Is it that big a deal?
I can only say from a professional perspective that to me it is a big deal. You have to be there to be able to convey the right emotion and to absorb what's going on. And I'll give you a great example of this. You can ride around a racetrack in a car, and you think you can know, oh, turn 1's like this, turns 2 is like this. But if you walk the racetrack, you have the material that you know that there's a small gravel patch at the inside of turn number 1. If the exit of turn number 1's really complicated because the pavement drops off, you have to get into the micro pieces of every race, and that includes sight, smells, sounds. It's talking. That's the main thing, is talking to people. You have to talk to drivers and crew chiefs, and I don't know how you can do that from a trailer somewhere else. I get the efficiencies. I've done it before. I've done it both ways. And it's really hard to look at a set of monitors and be able to bring the action to the fans. Now, with that in mind, let me just tell you this. On Saturday and Sunday, in the GTP class and the GT class as well. So the GTPs are the pure race cars. The GT cars are the production-based cars. You'll see these guys running those races without looking at the track hardly at all. The performance of the cars, the decisions they make strategic-wise, tires we talked about, all that's going to come from a computer and a set of monitors in the garage area. And if you go out to the track, look at the pit setups. These are 2-story pit setups, 100 guys for 2 cars. They do shifts now. I don't think anybody but Michael Shank stays up for the whole 24 hours
Not
anymore.
anymore. There used to be several of them that would do it.
I think Penske still stays up about for 24 hours. But
Of course, that's Rogers. That was his DNA anyway.
yeah. But I think you got to be there, and it's a great question, Tony. Thanks. It's always neat to see you, and I appreciate your cool questions.
Yeah, Tony's the best. That's for sure. He's part of the family.
Yeah, he's definitely a lover of the sport, no doubt.
Yeah, that's for
So,
sure.
so you lose a lot of the personal touch, and if they start calling the races from Charlotte, it's going to lose some of the novelty, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I think you need to be there. In radio, of course, you have to because you don't have any pictures to fall back on. So if you're looking at TV, you're talking about the same thing they are. Theater of the mind is what it's all about. We took many times, my colleague Guy and I, and a lot of times we took some fairly boring races and made them exciting by bringing in stories that we collected while we were walking around.
It's a BS session.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, it's that time of year again. The Daytona 500 is right around the corner, and we have tickets. We've got 4 tickets for the Oldfield Tower, and if you get a donation, if you give a donation of $25, you get a chance on 2 of the tickets. Actually, on all 4 of the tickets, because you get 2 chances with a $25 donation, and money goes to the foundation. And something to think about, if you're thinking about going to the 500, there ain't no more tickets, so we've got them right here. And
Nice.
Yeah, that's a heck of a deal. Isn't it?
Oldfield, right coming out of right out of turn 4.
Right.
That's my favorite parts of the racetrack. Always in both corners for any car that races there. Sports cars, open wheel. When the SCCA and others are there, is coming out of the bankings onto the backstretch and the Le Mans chicane, and coming out of turn 4 onto the front stretch. Those are incredible spots to see the cars make transitions and what goes on there. And, you know, the inches that they are from the wall in NASCAR.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
we know your brother was a racer, but were you?
No, never was. I
Yeah.
always
But you loved it. You loved it.
I got to tell a funny story. My friend Guy Hobbs and I, who's here, we were in Jacksonville, and we were in a go-kart race, and I think Cal Fish was our teammate. And we were in a go-kart race, and it was a 3-hour race, and we were so proud of ours. We finished ourselves. We finished third, and there was only 3 carts in the class. But no, that I did some go-kart racing for a while. Had some fun doing that. But was always found my passion on the other side of the fence. I loved the history, still do, as you can tell, talking about drivers born in 1914. But it was always that research, and then had my great opportunity at WNDB and MRN Radio, and that was what I did.
Yep, that's for sure.
You were very good calling the races, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're
I
definitely
appreciate that.
you're a voice of Speed Week for all of us. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was the WNDB days, and that was Guy Hobbs and Craig Armstrong and Bill Bowser and so
Oh,
many
boy.
people,
Bowser.
so helpful that made that happen. And you know, that's when we go back to when we used to, from 6 to midnight during Speed Weeks. That's all we talked about on WNDB was racing. It was really fun.
You bet. Hey, we're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back with Preston Root and a question from Larry.
Good show, ladies and gentlemen.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. Daytona Flea and Farmers Market is still the one for great savings and the best variety. Whether you need flowers and trees for your home or you're looking for great prices on Daytona Beach souvenirs, the market is the place to go. The market features 1,000 booths, 2 air-conditioned malls, a restaurant, and 9 snack shacks. Hops Grill features gourmet burgers and garden blend salads. Treat yourself to a great variety of brat and hot dog creations at the Doghouse, or enjoy a refreshing drink at the Seltzer Oasis. The market is open every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and is 90% undercover, so you can shop rain or shine. There's never a charge for parking or admission. Enjoy our monthly classic car cruise-in on the first Saturday of every month, and garage sale weekend, the third weekend of every month. See all we have to offer at DaytonaFleaMarket.com or like us on Facebook. Discover Daytona's most unique shopping experience, the Daytona Flea and Farmers Market, just a mile west of the Speedway. We're back from where it all began, racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buzz McKim, and co-host, Gary Keller.
All righty. Thank you,
you.
everybody. We do
Yeah.
appreciate that. And we thank everyone out there tuning in to see what we're up to. We like to keep you entertained, and we hope that we're putting a smile on your face. And this segment's being brought to you locally by the Homewood Suites by Hilton over on Bill France Boulevard. Great, every room is a suite, and complimentary breakfast, complimentary happy hour. Nice place to go. Good people, and they like us. So if you have anybody coming to town, you want to show off a little bit, the Homewood Suites by Hilton right there on Bill France. And Mr. Larry, you've got a question, right?
Yeah, I do. Hey, Preston, thanks for being here, first
Thank
off.
you. Appreciate it.
And what I'd like to know is, like, you spend a lot of time on pit road, especially in Xfinity and that. We heard you a lot on the radio and such. Were you ever involved in anything that you really didn't want to be involved in on pit road? I know not everybody's very happy sometimes.
Very few times. Some of them my own doing. It was always difficult to approach a driver after an accident or an on-track altercation. That was always an uncomfortable thing, but you look at it as part of the job, and you got to get the story. That just is the way it goes. But some of the funny things that didn't have anything to do with my job, that were just positions I put myself in, were maybe misidentifying a crew chief, or that was always in. I can say that with very rare exceptions, we worked with such a solid team. We hardly ever made mistakes. That's something I can't say anywhere else in my life except for my broadcast career. But we did our research, but that was always a fear of, maybe misidentifying somebody. And then the one thing I remember, and it was, it was not Dennis Setzer. Maybe it was Dennis Setzer, but anyway, I was doing a pre-race interview, and they were just getting ready to roll off. The command had been given, and I was finishing up a question with the window net up, and the microphone came off the end of the cord and fell in his car. I mean, they're rolling down pit road, and my microphone is laying in Dennis Setzer's floorboard. And he had to unbuckle, and his crew saw what happened. They were standing right there, and thankfully they were enough to save me from trouble. But, yeah, now it's part of the job, and I was everybody was always kind to me. I never had a run-in with any of the drivers. I'll never forget Kyle Busch, the first year of the playoffs. In its initial iteration, the first race was New Hampshire International Speedway, and Kyle Busch had a solid shot at the championship that year, and he was first out of the race, which really eliminated him from the top 10 in a possible championship. And I got sent to him and had to be the first person to interview him. That was a little bit of a tense situation, but hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, that's true. Take one for the team, for
Yeah.
sure.
You as well as Buzz have met a lot of drivers over the years, had personal relationships with them. Who's been the most intriguing, in the gratifying relationships? I'll ask you that same question, Buzz. Who did you really enjoy?
Buzz, I got to think about it for a second. I know
Okay.
there's so many. I can think of a lot. I'm curious to what you think.
Yeah, there's been so many over the years, but just recently, like within the last 10 years or so, I got to be pretty good friends with Bobby Allison. In fact, we got lost at the Charlotte airport one time, and he was looking for a hotel, and he was driving, and I was asking for directions, and nobody could seem to fix us up, So he said, next time you drive, and I'll ask for the directions. But Bobby was such a classy guy. I just loved him. And then, going back to the days of Ray Fox, people like that, got to know him very well. And I've been very fortunate. Living in Daytona these years, you kind of tend to rub elbows with all kinds of people.
And Charlotte.
And Charlotte, too, yeah. Charlotte was great, getting to know Richard Petty and, going to these people's homes and, Kelly Arborough's house, and there was my book, The NASCAR Vault, sitting on his coffee table.
Oh,
I
boy.
went, wow,
What an honor.
that's very cool.
Yeah.
For me, it's the ones, as a broadcaster, researcher, somebody that loves history, you know a lot about drivers. But the ones that have made impressions on me that I know are certainly AJ. I mean, my whole life I've been around him and been able to spend some time with him, especially at places like Indianapolis, and that's incredibly special. But there's, in research and then meeting someone, people like Bud Moore.
Oh, boy.
There's such an enormous story behind the man outside of racing that we're talking about stuff that endears you to the human in people, not the racer. And Hurley Haywood, Danny Ungaius, these are people that all, served honorably in the military and were discharged and then went into racing, and people like that. I mean, I was telling somebody a story the other day about Danny Ungaius and his when he would race in the Rolex 24, in particular at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. When that guy would qualify, everybody would come to the fence. And it's not a name that a lot of people remember because it goes back to, the 80s and early mid 80s. But the guy was one of the most incredible qualifiers that's ever lived. I mentioned Hans Stuck before. To see him in the rain was just a thing of beauty. And so those stories are about racers. When you get to know people, there's a story behind the story, like Hurley and Danny Ungaius and Bud Moore, that just is incredible. I mean, these were heroes in a bigger sense of the term than just racing.
Oh, yeah, and Danny was known as Danny on the gas.
Boy,
Yeah.
And he was always on the gas.
Yeah, it started out as a drag racer
Yeah.
from Kahului, Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Isn't that amazing?
which is where my sister lives now.
Oh,
oddly enough.
really?
Yeah.
He's still alive, I believe. isn't
No,
he?
it passed away
Did he pass
two
away?
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
to
too
hear
bad.
that.
I know he had that one bad wreck at Indy, and you don't
Yeah.
know how he survived because he was literally hanging out of the car,
Yep.
going down the track at 100 miles an hour. He was amazing. Yep.
I have to ask both of you guys. This is another interesting question. We'll make it quick. We won't elaborate. The best driver of all time. I know what you're going to probably say.
What do you say, Buzz? Go for it.
Oh, boy. I hate to be a spoiler, but I have to lean to it. It's going to be either Foyt or Andretti. And Earnhardt was okay, too, but he was very limited as to what his scope was. But, Andretti won the World Championship, so I have to
Formula
really
One.
give that to him.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason that Foyt doesn't get it for me.
He was. I have to say, Mario. He's just such a finesse guy. We've had him on the show. He's just class all the way through.
Yeah, see, this is what it just fascinates me, and I'll say mine, Foyt. I think Foyt did it all. The Triple Crown, four-time Indy 500 winner. He could do it all. His prowess on dirt was something to behold. I didn't see a lot of it because it was in the 60s, but this debate is what interests me, and I intend to pursue here and elsewhere. I work as a director of the the Hall of Fame of America, which is at the Speedway.
Oh, yeah.
And we'd love to have forums with anybody that wants to debate these kind of
Dialogue
issues, because it depends on. I mean, if you're talking about finesse, if you're talking about records, whatever it is, a single discipline, multi-discipline. You have people like Jeff Ward, who wasn't a bad IndyCar racer. He was a great motorcycle racer, and he did okay in NASCAR. I mean, who can it be? It's just your favorite, and making that case, I think, is the fun part.
Yeah. So many. It could be another show.
It could be.
It could be a whole series of shows. It's my dream.
And we would love to have you back sometime just to get the family history again. Wouldn't that be great?
Oh,
Your
that'd be
family
super.
history is just
Well,
phenomenal.
it's always fun to be here.
Yeah.
You guys are kind. I appreciate that.
Well, we love having you.
Yeah.
We have another quick break. We'll be right back with Preston Root. In just a
Big
minute.
Bill.
The caution flag is out. Time for a break. We'll be right back with the Legends of Racing radio show. Welcome to Homewood Suites by Hilton in Daytona Beach. You're right in the middle of all the action. Daytona International Speedway, the airport, One Daytona, Florida's newest entertainment and retail destination, and of course, the world's most famous beach. You'll love our newly remodeled 1- and 2-bedroom suites, along with our popular King Studios. You won't need your full kitchen, as Homewood Suites Daytona serves up complimentary breakfast and evening social. It's like home away from home. Go to HomewoodDaytona.com for Homewood Suites by Hilton in Daytona Beach. We're back from where it all began. Racing's original North Turn Beach Bar and Grill. The Legends of Racing radio show continues with your host, Buzz McKim, and co-host, Gary Keller.
All righty. Thank you, everybody. We sure appreciate that. We're here with Preston Root. And the Florida Short Track Racing Legends Reunion is going to have a car show at New Smyrna Speedway this Sunday, the 26th. You got to come down and check it out. Show cars and race cars and autograph sessions and swap meet. And it's going to be really neat, and it's free. And it's a nice way to spend an afternoon at the racetrack with race cars and show cars. So think about that this coming Sunday from 12 to 4. And we have Mr. Bill.
Mr. Bill.
You got a question for us, sir?
Howdy.
Hi there. Nice to see you here. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
I'd like
that.
you to look into your crystal ball on a couple questions.
Yeah.
I'm a Northeast guy, and I'm a Mike Joy fan. I remember Mike Joy. He was the track announcer at Riverside Park.
That's right. Yeah.
Who's going to take Mike Joy's place?
Oh boy, it's been long enough that I've been retired that it's that world moves very quickly. And as we talked about before, is how races get broadcast now and who's doing them. I was talking with some friends over the weekend, and there's been moves in NASCAR announcers, in particular Lee Diffie, that's going to be announcing a lot of NASCAR in their television product this year and half of the season. Ultimately talented announcer. Where people go and what people do, especially at different stages of their life, I don't know what Mike has plans for. I wish I did. I couldn't say. If retirement and cutting back wasn't part of all of their, it's a young man's game. I'll tell you that.
Certainly is, with all the travel and all.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd like to present to you, just to get your thoughts. You're a visionary. You see what's coming and going. To keep
On the racetrack, I
NASCAR
do.
going, they went into road racing and all. And the 24 at Daytona is a perfect example. They raced more than one class at a time. I love it at nighttime when they have different color headlights. Could you ever foresee NASCAR running the Cup cars and the Affinity cars together at the same time on a road course, where maybe if you're an Affinity car, you would handle a lot better going through the turns and be able to catch up with the big guys going down the straightaway?
Cup guys.
And start in the afternoon, run into the night in headlights, different color headlights. Would that be an attraction or what?
Well, I think because IMSA is a subsidiary of NASCAR and they're, of course, affiliated, I think that the answer to that question is that it exists for the drivers in the other form of the sport in IMSA. And so if you want to do that, come into IMSA, where this weekend we'll have 4 classes. 2 are similar in GT cars, and then the LMP2 cars, which is a spec chassis. The field is separated by less than 1 second with 16 cars, and then the GTP cars, the prototypes. So you have it.
Conflict of interest.
Yeah, conflict of interest maybe a little bit, but I just don't know that it's the time and getting those cars ready for Xfinity to race against a Cup car, let alone the preparation for road course racing. I just don't know. I thought it was a big deal when they had windshield wipers and headlights or windshield wipers and that. So rain tires to me on NASCAR, I understand it, but it's maybe not my cup of tea.
Well, I thought it was a big deal when they decided to race on city streets. Really a big, their potholes. Come back.
Real quick before we lose our time. Really unusual back in the day, because most of those guys
58 years old and teenager. He got his love from racing from his father, and carried a wallet in every race he was in. Had a picture of his, carried it with continues in my evolution of learning about these older racers is that like Foy sports cars racers that were through the 70s, as we all know, that this it's not a part of the sport that we tend to dwell on. I don't remember it for its tragedy, but for the great drivers that didn't make it. And there was a time in the 50s in Indy cars and in the 70s, 60s, and early 70s in sports cars where it was literally in some years more guys lost their lives than made it. Yeah. And Novellari was you can't, it's by and you see the wrecks from early, in particular the 20s at Indy, when they would everything else, and you don't know how they did it.
Was there one particular wreck that really affected you? I know there was one for me, and I want to hear your version.
There's a couple of Stan Fox at Indianapolis in 1996 was one of the most graphic accidents, and then the one Buzz talked about because he was a friend on Gaius's wreck in between turn I think there was 1 and 2 at Indy. His wreck was tremendous. And then a writer. He was a writer for Road and Track, Patrick Bedard. His crash at Indy those were all ones that I were there for that terrified me. And the ones at Daytona I prefer not to talk about because it was a different time at Daytona then, and they just were, I like to think of what's ahead of us, not what's behind us in that respect.
I was at the Indianapolis 500, and mine was probably Swede Savage.
Oh, boy. Yep.
Yeah. Terrible. Salt Walter.
Yep.
AJ. They were all involved. Terrible, terrible time.
Yep. Well, we're coming down the old home stretch here, and on the 28th, which is Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, Ken Schrader is going to be at the Drive-In Church. It's the Living Legends of Auto Racing meeting. Schrader is going to be talking. It's free, and they're going to have soft drinks and cookies. I'll go for the cookies for sure. And I think Schrader's going to be awesome. He's very, very entertaining.
Oh, that's the guy that tells the best stories.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
Great guy.
That's for sure. So think about that.
And then race week, Buzz. Race week.
Yep.
Tell them who we.
Oh, okay. On Friday the 14th, we're going to have Jeff Bodine.
Packed house here, trust me.
Yeah.
Get here early.
Yeah.
Right.
Great show.
Thanks for
The legend where beach racing begins. Next time for the